Look at how seamlessly conversational AI is pouring into ordinary living rooms. These machines listen, talk, and blend into our most private spaces. But the foundation of the technology pushing into your home is currently under a microscope in a Northern California federal court. Apple has officially accused OpenAI of stealing trade secrets at every level to build its flagship hardware device. The complaint details specific names and actions. Take Cheng Lu, a former Apple engineer. Apple alleges that after he joined OpenAI, he kept his work laptop, breached their cloud storage, and downloaded confidential product specifications. Then's Tang Tan, OpenAI's chief hardware officer and Apple's former design lead. The lawsuit claims he explicitly directed job candidates who still worked at Apple to smuggle physical, unreleased hardware parts into their OpenAI interviews for what the formal complaint calls show-and-tell sessions. This is the device OpenAI wants sitting on your kitchen counter, and according to a rival with deep pockets, the entire project rests on a deliberate strategy of taking the data first, building the product, and dealing with the legal fallout later. That reflex of extracting first and asking later is the baseline for consumer AI. We saw it play out this week when Meta launched a tool called Muse Image. It allowed anyone to generate and edit faces using public Instagram photos as raw material, and it opted those accounts in automatically. This diagram illustrates the arithmetic of product design. When you build a feature as an opt-out, you're betting on the fact that almost nobody touches the defaults. A default yes creates an enormous funnel of compliance, capturing nearly every user simply because they didn't know where to look to find the tiny exit door. Meta didn't anticipate exactly who was inside that funnel. The Actors Union, SAG-AFTRA, and the Creative Artists Agency immediately revolted. They publicly condemned the design and demanded a strict affirmative opt-in model to protect their clients from having their likeness manipulated by strangers. Faced with organized, well-funded opposition, Meta backed down. The company killed the Muse Image feature entirely, just 4 days after launching it. They tested the waters and retreated when the unions pushed back. But if you don't happen to have Hollywood agency representation, the original design tells the story. Tech platforms treat your face as raw material by default. This map tracks where lawmakers are actively fighting those defaults. In the first half of this year alone, 14 laws regulating companion chatbots passed across the country. And as the colors show, this is happening at nearly the same rate in deeply red states and deeply blue states. While they differ on the edges, almost all of these state laws agree on a core template built around 2 specific requirements. First, the machine must clearly disclose that it is not human. Second, the operator must implement strict protocols to address user self-harm. That map is about to expand. Right now, 2 more companion bot bills are sitting on governors' desks, and both of their clocks run out on the exact same day, Wednesday, July 15th. The first is in Hawaii. Under their legislative rules, Governor Josh Green doesn't actually have to lift a pen to approve Senate Bill 3001. Because he left it off his veto intent list, if he remains silent through Wednesday, the bill automatically becomes law. The second is Missouri's Senate Bill 1019. It faces the identical Wednesday deadline, but requires the opposite mechanism. Governor Mike Kehoe must actively sign or veto the legislation before the clock runs out. Congress has held hearings, but Washington has yet to pass a comprehensive framework for AI. In that vacuum, state capitals are stepping in to force a baseline reset, actively rewriting the default rules for machines that talk to isolated people. Across the Atlantic, regulators are making trade-offs. Brussels recently agreed to delay the heaviest compliance burdens of its landmark AI Act by over a year, but negotiators refuse to budge on the law's central transparency mandate. That surviving rule is Article 50. Starting August 2nd, any chatbot operating inside the European Union is legally required to announce that it is a machine during its very first exchange with a user. No exceptions, no delays. We can already see the market consequences of Europe holding that line. When xAI launched its newest frontier model, Grok 4.5, it shipped the product worldwide, but deliberately skipped the European market. The omission comes down to unfinished homework. To legally operate under the surviving framework, xAI still has to complete mandatory safety paperwork, undergo adversarial testing, and establish formal incident reporting protocols. A massive regulatory apparatus was successfully lobbied to delay its strictest rules, but one simple mandate survived. Europe proved that requiring a machine to identify itself carries enough teeth to keep a non-compliant frontier model locked out of the market entirely. For a working model of how to handle consent properly, the most compelling proof of concept comes from an unlikely source. The U.S. military is currently running one of the largest real-world deployments of AI in American healthcare. The Defense Health Agency just finished rolling out its clinical AI agent to military hospitals and clinics worldwide. It is an ambient listening tool designed to record and analyze the conversation between a provider and a patient during an intake exam. The utility is clear. The machine listens to the room and automatically drafts the clinical note. Doctors report saving up to 35 minutes of typing per session, allowing them to actually look up from their keyboards and make eye contact with a service member sitting across from them. But the value is in the guardrails. The system is physically incapable of recording a single syllable until the doctor asks for permission out loud and the patient verbally agrees in the room. The agency engineered specific friction points into the software. The recording can be paused at any moment by the patient, and the machine never has the final word. A human doctor retains total responsibility, reviewing and signing every single AI-drafted note. The military intentionally designed the hardest, most friction-heavy path for data collection. They required affirmative, out-loud consent for every single use, and the technology still works flawlessly. Look at the landscape we've covered. Meta built a massive image tool by setting the math to opt out. OpenAI's hardware ambitions are currently defending against allegations of systematic corporate theft. Meanwhile, the military required an explicit verbal opt-in. The underlying architecture of ambient listening and generative models is largely the same. User consent is not some impossible technical hurdle that stifles innovation. It is simply a software configuration. Asking for permission before taking data and having a human sign their name to the final product scales globally. The technology to protect your choices already exists. The only question left is whether the companies building our future choose to turn it on.